Lightning Bolt has been called many things. Broken, iconic, the embodiment of every other Magic card. But what is underneath the content creator bluster? Lightning Bolt is many things, of course. The representation of an ancient force of nature, oftentimes worshipped as a deity, the raw, intense chiaroscuro of its artwork, the three hammer-like Anglo-Saxon syllables of its name, whose stress hardly wavers throughout, the almost simplistic nature of its rules text, beckoning infinite gameplay variations, the feeling of power engendered in players by its flavor and mechanical interlock, the raw power level of 3 damage for 1 mana.
Look what they need to mimic a fraction of our power.
A legendary card, long before legendary creatures. The original printing of Lightning Bolt is an artifact of beauty and primacy that has endured templating updates, rules changes, and the general revolution of the game, and transcended the onslaught of reprintings and secret lair updates too. Its rules text has remained pretty much unchanged throughout the history of Magic's ebb and flow of complication and simplification. It's somewhat eerie to see how it bypasses the to-target player or planeswalker targeting mess. Lightning Bolt don't care about your controversial new card type. Lightning Bolt, hit 1 target. End of.
It's boring. Human too much talking.
While the newer versions of Swords to Plowshares iterate and expand on the idea of the original card, Lightning Bolt keeps it real.
What we doing, Coney Island? Collect real, son. We keep it real.
With its original artwork having been reprinted 20 times, according to Scryfall. The 20th version was, somewhat inauspiciously, the 30th anniversary edition. Here's to another 50. Like a lot of Magic's earliest cards, Lightning Bolt is a great import from Dungeons & Dragons. As I'm sure everyone with half an interest in the game knows at this point, since it's every chin-stroking Magic boomer's favorite little factoid, Magic was originally designed as a game that could be played without any equipment beyond the cards themselves. Tell that to my Amazon Basics backpack rammed with notepads and Zedru permanents given away counters at D&D conventions in between campaigns. Lightning Bolt as a spell in D&D is a good old reliable damage dealer. I'll read out the description from D&D Beyond. Stroke of lightning, forming a line 100 feet long and 5 feet wide, blasts out from you in a direction you choose. Each creature in the line must make a dexterity saving throw. The creature takes 8d6 lightning damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. The lightning ignites flammable objects in the area that aren't being worn or parried. I'm not the authority on D&D, but the consensus seems to be that Lightning Bolt is comparable to Fireball, with both dealing 8d6 damage, but Lightning Bolt having a smaller area of effect, making it better for parties sticking close together, and a less resisted damage type. Fireball is of course a Magic card too, but with a variable effect depending on how much mana you can dump into it. In their desperation to advertise everyone's favorite card-hoarding racketeers, and maybe even earn a sponsorship and the right to play with their terrible sleeves, players came up with a combo combining Fireball with Channel, so that it could be named after the website as a kind of tribute, even though... oh, hang on, I'm being told that was the other way around. That seems really wrong. Either way, Lightning Bolt was Red's entry into Magic's original cycle of cards that do 3 of something. The Boon cycle, if you will insist on all jargon everything. One wrinkle that has stuck with me since first learning about the card is the way that Lightning Bolt uses the power of electric current as opposed to fire.
High voltage.
In D&D, this means it deals electric damage, while the two are grouped together in Red's slice of the color pie. Often red is portrayed as the color of mindless burn, a burn in a spell like Fireball. but Lightning Bolt is more focused, deliberate. As an aside, the different damage types are just one example of the staggering influence of D&D on the gaming universe. Think of Pokemon's rock, paper, scissors damage calculations, or even damage types in the Souls games. When you cast a Lightning Bolt, you're tapping into a damage typing system with incredible reach. Putting Lightning Bolt on the stack feels like summoning a Lightning Bolt. It has a very low mana investment for a high amount of damage. The caster can feel like they've summoned more destructive power than they can handle. It's an instant, striking at an unpredictable time before disappearing just as quickly. And, the original artwork's sick, so it looks like a Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt's exploits in competitive Magic barely require explanation. When legal, it gets played. The card offers creature, planeswalker, and now battle removal. Damage that reaches over the top of a stalled board, combat blowouts, and of course a very famous victory in Control Mirrors of Yore.
I wasn't thinking 4.
It's a good way to steal it, I think.
I think so.
And as Ben actually just stole the game, or Shahar just stole the game, as Ben said.
Bolt tends to warp formats around its 3 damage, with creatures having 4 toughness or more considered to be out of Bolt range. The same goes for players with 4 or more life.
But when it was your time that you would be the one to hold the strings.
The play pattern of bolting the bird, using cheap removal to destroy your opponent's mana-producing creature, has proliferated across formats, mana creatures, and burn spells. While tracing Lightning Bolt's direct history is fairly simple, understanding the power of lightning, its cultural significance, and how human beings have desired to chuck it about is a bit trickier. Lightning is a force of nature, and as such existed long before recorded history, and outside even the most well-heeled amateur gaming researchers can. My first thought was to compare it with the other legendary removal spell that I've covered, Swords to Plowshares. Swords to Plowshares gives up its origins and its name. One can simply look up the reference, and the different pieces of recorded history like the scripture, its English translation, and its nods towards pacifism start to unravel at a manageable pace. While Swords emerges from the monotheistic religious traditions, with their easily accessible holy books and diligently recorded prophets, Lightning Bolt forces us much further back, before organized religion, before translation and interpretation, and before language. Oh no, wait, that was supposed to be a T.S. Eliot reference.
What the thunder said, after the torchlight red on sweaty faces, after the frosty silence in the gardens.
The word history doesn't give us much of a way into the concept of lightning, since it's pretty run-still.
It does exactly what it says on the tin.
Lightning is something that lightens up its vicinity. There's a kind of simplistic perfection to this word, yog and all, that hasn't really changed much since it was in F.J. Furnival's early English poems and Lives of Saints, and Chaucer's Pardoner's Tale. Interestingly enough, it seems like Magic's designers simply hop over to this OED entry whenever they need a new burn spell name. Lighten obviously derives from light, a word that can be traced all the way back to Old English and even Proto-Indo-European. I don't think this is a particularly productive path to go down, since lightning in this context is a very distinct thing from the concept of light. It just so happens that its name in English is closely related and quite boring. Etymology must give way to mythology if we're to uncover the origin of lightning's power. The rigid monotheism of Swords to Plowshares must crumble away under the weight of the pantheon. Son of Kronos and Rhea, Zeus was the ancient Greek god of the sky, law and order, lightning and thunder, who ruled over the other gods on Mount Olympus. Zeus broke the stalemate of the Titanomachy, a decade-long war for control of the known universe, by unleashing the 100-handers from their subterranean prisons, Magic card inspo, check, and then teaming with them in the final assault on Kronos' titans. The 100-handers launched rocks, while Zeus held bolts of lightning to subdue the titans and confine them in Tartarus. If the story of a powerful warrior king hurling lightning bolts at gigantic immortal beings sounds familiar, it's possible that you've played a certain game people like to talk about on the internet. Next time a 2-hour lore video pops up on your timeline, check they've read their ancient Greek mythology. Either way, Zeus's conquest over Kronos' titans is probably what sits at the foundation of the way the traditions that inherited ancient Greek and later Roman culture envisage lightning as a weapon. The depictions of Zeus that we have from the ancient Greek period often depict him holding his trademark lightning bolt. The medium of stone sculpture somewhat inhibits his artist's ability to render the transience and instance of a bolt of lightning, but nevertheless depicts lightning as something that can be wielded, a weapon fashioned from nature rather than an untamable force of nature. If we were to upend reality in an Alex Jones, Cambridge Analytica fashion,
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay!
we might say that Zeus was the original caster of the lightning bolt spell, but he wasn't. The card was printed about 2,000 years later. Its D&D forebear coming a few years after that. Zeus's bolt of lightning would become his icon to the extent that adding a lightning bolt to a statue would mean that said statue now represented Zeus or his Roman equivalent, Jupiter. The statue, now recorded in the Louvre as Zeus de Smyrna, probably constructed around 250 BCE, was discovered in 1680 in Smyrna, now called Izmir and Turkish territory, was presented to Louis XIV as Aesculapius, the ancient Greek god of medicine, but it was restored by Pierre Garnier, who added the upraised arm and lightning bolt. Thus, the statue was Zeus. Lightning equals Zeus, simple as. As we move forward through the historical depictions of Zeus, I wasn't able to find as many lightning bolts in the paintings and sculpture, with his sexual misdeeds rather than his battle prowess seeming to be what piqued artistic interest. Jupiter and Thetis, for example, gives a much more realistic Zeus than the Titan-slaying magician, who rocks a mundane metal scepter in place of his lightning bolt, and sports a very realistic-looking dad bod. Believe me, I would know.
Gotta block out the pain. Make your body grow.
Of course, the sky and the stuff that comes out of it are of such primacy to human life on Earth that other cultures come up with divine explanations for them too. In the Shinto tradition, Raijin, whose name literally means thunder god, controls the storms by banging drums to summon thunder and lightning. His lightning is said to imbue the places it strikes with fertility, although Raijin is strongly identified with chaos and destruction, often being depicted with demonic features and showing no regard for the wishes of mortals. Raijin's depiction seems to mesh more with the unpredictable nature of lightning as we humans perceive it, and less with the martial prowess of Zeus's ordered bolts. Swerving back to the Western tradition, we have the Old Norse god Thor, who might be more familiar to modern audiences via the cinematic universe rather than the human one. Thor is heavily associated with the power of lightning, to the extent that he occupies the idiomatic name for lightning in different Nordic languages. Thor's varme, Thor's warmth in Norwegian, the Swedish Gottgubben Afar, the good old fellow is taking a ride, as well as the word Tordon, Thor's rumble.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Whilst I don't have any doubt that Thor's association with lightning and exceptional combat prowess probably contributed to the idea of a spell where the user could wield it, I don't think his influence is as strong as Zeus's, mainly because of his massive hammer. Mjolnir is so iconically Thor's weapon, from the dig site to the multiplex, that we must consider Thor at least secondary to Zeus in the popularization of chucking lightning about, at least until Thor 8 Untold Origins, where Billy Bob Thornton as Zeus teaches him the secret of the bolt.
I'm tired, boss.
I've purposefully left the lightning god chat there since this isn't a video about comparative religion, but in my reading around the topic, I found lightning gods in the Baltic tradition. Herkons, the highest god of the Polish pantheon, Heron, the Hindu god Indra, and Ilapa, the Inca god of thunder, lightning, weather, and war. Coming back to the monotheism I started the series with, lightning bolt indicates the wrath of God in Exodus 9:24, 2 Samuel 22:15, Job 37, and in Psalm 18. In the book of Revelation, final judgment makes frequent reference to lightning. Whilst the cosmic ballet has always been an important fascination for those who dwell underneath it, and lightning itself has been a considerable artistic inspiration throughout recorded history, it's the narrative of supernatural power that brings forth the idea of controlling lightning. Its gods are usually powerful and combative, but in Zeus especially we find the divine vessel capable of channeling the power of lightning into discrete bolts, and the germ of the idea of lightning bolt as a spell. It might be interesting to consider this the next time you cast a bolt, the human history it knits together, its inherent chaos and unpredictability, and the immense power one wields when bringing it to heel.
Your spell tome is nothing. Your magic serves zero purpose. You should cast Lightning Bolt on yourself, now!
Having covered the origins of lightning bolts in human culture, it is of course now only pertinent to cover the way Magic the Gathering has tried to represent lightning bolts using artwork, flavor text, and game mechanics. With regard to the artwork specifically, I noticed a strong contrast to the previous cards I've covered. While Ephemerate and Swords to Plowshares are a bit tricky to represent on one 2D panel, and there is a joy in the hamstrung and slightly janky attempts over the years, Lightning Bolt is easy and iconic. I mean, it just lights up the darkness, right? At the same time, I think there is a productive tension in that lightning is one of the phase transition entities that elude honest attempts to depict them. Kinda like human hair and water. How does one tame the storm and render a satisfying lightning bolt in the space of a Magic card's art slot?
Size does matter!
Let's find out. It's easy to gush about the original artwork. Our minds are warped to it not just by good old nostalgia, but by the hyper-polished and often over-literal contemporary style. The post-retinal amount of pixels presented to us in AI art mean that brushstrokes are often a breath of fresh air. Almost literally in the case of Christopher Rush's immortal original lightning bolts. The bluish-black of the background contrasts perfectly with the electric charge of the bolt, but also with the red framing of the card, as well as his artwork for the cards in early Magic sets. Rush devised the 5 mana symbols, conjuring the whiff of marshy petrichor that you'd imagine is the perfect setting for summoning and controlling lightning. Unlike its M10 descendant, there is no human presence to be found. The player is the planeswalker after all, and the anonymity of the 3 hills set the scene for all manner of backstories and encounters for aspiring red mages. Pleasingly, Rush's bolt is meteorologically solid, with the thunderstorms that lightning most commonly occurs from appearing in the sky. Lightning itself is an electrostatic discharge from the atmosphere between 2 electrically charged regions. These most frequently occur within a storm cloud, so weather scientists can rest easy in the light of Rush's artwork. It's a testament to the stark perfection of the original design that the artwork did not change throughout all of the reprints before M10. Beta, Unlimited, and 4th edition all printed exactly the same card.
They're always the same. Always the same.
Unlimited and 4th had white borders, and while the Pro Tour Collector Set editions, an early venture, of course, into non-tournament legal cards, a Judge gift card, and anthologies and beatdown box sets, and the Magic Online Masters.
We're gonna skate to one song only.
The gap between 4th edition and Lightning Bolt's next standard printing, M10, would be 14 years. It occupies an interesting spot in the boon cycle where it's not so dastardly powerful as to be only legal in Vintage, like Ancestral Recall, not quite as easily abusable as Dark Ritual, but just so damn efficient that everything else in standard power level environments especially tends to be repositioned and reevaluated in light of its presence, hence the long gap in its standard career. It came back suffused with nostalgia, in a package that was obviously intended to recall the mythos of the original card, but ended up somewhere between Explained Joke and Simulacrum. Gotta hand it to the designers. Pretty much every aspect of the card refers back to the original Lightning Bolt in some way. The shape of the bolt itself, the storm cloud it's emanating from, the 3 mountains in the background, the flavor text, hell, they even got some other dude called Christopher to illustrate it. I do think such ingenuity should be commended, but in this instance, I think it's in aid of a weak idea. Evocation and reference to old ideas, especially with the intention of evoking nostalgia, is a delicate art. Emotions and perceptions of times gone by can be warped and exaggerated by memory, so the artist needs to tread lightly in recalling them. M10's lightning bolt feels gauche and smug in its yearning for a past it can never recover. The addition of a comedically small figure into the landscape, who the flavor text informs us is shrieking, removes the player from the caster's persona and instead traps them in a web of callbacks. The flavor text reads unintuitively as if it was written for a box-ticking exercise. The Spark Mage is an appropriate appellation for this tiny wizard. All they can usually conjure is sparks, I guess. He's shrieking, of course, just for a bit of added hilarity. Anyone who writes the rage of the storms of his youth instead of the rage of his youthful storms needs a big dose of Stunken White, and he'd never thought to see again instead of he never thought he'd see again feels like it was written by Matthew Gregory Lewis. But these are just linguistic quibbles. Ultimately, I feel like the card lapses into the kind of self-obsession that shows Magic at its worst and certainly least creative. The kind of hermetically sealed and culturally incestuous environment that, as I tried to show in Story of the Card Swords to Plowshares, is neither interesting nor sustainable. The High Council of Bolt obviously learnt the error of their ways, since the next version of Lightning Bolt was the textless player rewards one. Bolt no go well with language, Bolt deal 3.
Less blah blah blah, more smash stab kill!
Whilst there are a lot of provisos around textless cards in general, what better candidate than Lightning Bolt, whose change has weathered the storms of retemplating so brilliantly and can be shorthanded so elegantly. The first textless version uses the extra space to present what seems to me to be ambiguous. I want to see it as the Shrieking Spark Mage getting his comeuppance for being such a backward-looking loser, but it's possible that the artist intended to show the figure on the mountaintop channeling the energy presented by the evil clawed hand to form their lightning bolt. No such ambiguity on the next textless version of the card, which I do actually own a copy of. It's nestled in my Niv-Mizzet Perun EDH deck. Here we get an Ascended Spark Mage, who's presumably conquered his haters, wielding lightning from the sky, its logical origin of course, to smite the demon below. Probably my favorite bolts, especially of the alternate arts. The textless frame is well exploited to move the spell from fusty, half-remembered sparks to something Inferno adjacent. Living up to its iconic status, Magic was granted its very own secret lair in June 2020, Mountain Go. 4 bolts by 4 artists, which are all beautifully illustrated, but don't really showcase the breadth of styles Secret Lair has become famous for. There's not a great deal of variety to the narrative either, with stuff just getting bolted. Dragon, Bear, Rock Formation, Minotaur. Probably the pick of these is Alexa's Zirits, which melds an uncanny, almost photo-negative color scheme with stylized clouds, and the bolt almost flowing out like liquid from the skull guard above the unfortunate figure being bolted. With the Shrieking Spark Mage version being reprinted for Masters 25 and the Mystery Booster product, the next new versions of Lightning Bolt arrived in Strixhaven's Mystical Archive bonus sheet.
What's up, y'all? This is Mr. Cole.
There are some dubious inclusions here, but Lightning Bolt definitely warrants its spot. The Spark Mage used it in his youth, for goodness sake. The English version is entrancing. Its pathways, angles, and curves suggest the Philosopher's Stone, the alchemical device, not that one. The background navy almost recalls the dark blue night of the original card, while its progressive oranges, ochres, and eventual yellows seem to indicate the mage at the center of the piece gradually summoning what becomes a lightning bolt.
No, this whole thing, all of this, it's all about me.
The Japanese language version is slightly less abstracted, making use of the same color palette to depict a demon or oni, pushed into the background by some gorgeously angular lightning bolt trails, and the first instance, at least as far as I can make out, of a detailed depiction of the destructive power of the bolts, the top half of a skull still searing from the electrical impact. Toasty! Better than bolting the bird, bolt the cranium. The flavor text is common across both cards, giving us another foundation myth for the spell that isn't needed for anyone who's watched the first part of this video. The hidden card for Secret Lair Street Fighter is Lightning Bolt reskinned as Hadouken. And this one, in theory at least, definitely passes the Ryu with the Gatling gun test. The Hadouken, literally meaning wave motion fist, relates to other fighting game projectiles the same way Lightning Bolt relates to other burn spells in Magic. It's sort of the original at best. Whilst the power level of the move will vary according to the version of Street Fighter that it's presented in, including Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
To disrespect the people that got top 8 at Evolution, to make excuses because it's on console, it's ridiculous.
As opposed to the enduring impact that powerful Magic cards can acquire if their initial printing is potent enough. The D-pad inputs, animation, game action, and of course the sound effect make Hadouken every bit as iconic as Lightning Bolt. Hadouken is its own flavor text, summoning its infamous sound clip into the player's mind, and the artwork seems almost pixel close to the fireball itself, just managing to capture Ryu's hands, with some of the stage captured too. A brave move to depict just the Hadouken itself, I'm not entirely sure it pays off. Second Commander Legends set, Battle for Baldur's Gate, brought 2 new versions of the card. The first one depicting a more practical application of the spell than we might be used to. It's being used to smash in a fortified gate. Artifact destruction is not something we find in Lightning Bolt's mechanical toolbox, but it's cool nevertheless to see a version that doesn't get caught up in the reverence of the original and shows us the spell in action. The D&D rulebook style brings us almost full circle to the spell's origin. In a way, it's disappointing not to see some more fragments of D&D in the design, but the almost monochrome style of beige and black with a coloured-in background is a nice homage. While Double Masters wheels out the Shrieking Sparkmage version for its standard printing of the card, we get a brand new version for the full art treatment. Here we see Lightning Bolt shorn of human interference, its garish magenta shredding the usual dark blue sky. My, how shocking is the somewhat lackluster flavor text, bringing back the old smug, dad joke puns, but a cool collector's item nonetheless. Game Night Free-for-All brings back the Shrieker again, and with the 30th anniversary edition obviously reprinting the original Christopher Rush art, the last Lightning Bolt of note to discuss is the Nerf LMTD Lightning Lair bundle.
Oh, it's true! It's damn true!
One of the more daring crossovers, for sure. This very unique edition of Secret Lair gives its buyers a special edition Nerf blaster with Lightning Bolt decals, as well as 2 copies of a promo Lightning Bolt card where the original Christopher Rush artwork has been extended to the full frame with Lightning Bolt's sparse rules text rendered in a translucent box. It looks really cool, and it's a shame it's not available elsewhere. But for $39.99, it's not a terrible deal even if you aren't into Nerf blasters. Unconventional product line notwithstanding, it proves to some extent the iconic nature of the card if they're willing to lather it onto children's toys. The Nerf Lightning Bolt product feels like the kind of thing that would start 1,000 Magic YouTubers whinging. Willful ignorance that Hasbro is a publicly traded corporation, as evident as ever, and yet this video has never been made, as far as I can see. Why not? I posit that Lightning Bolt's mystique transcends the demands of late capitalism, the reprint equity business model being pursued by Wizards of the Coast, and the analytical skills of anyone who tries to talk about it. It's achieved that holy grail of marketing, genericism, and is even integrated into the Magic jargon that experienced players love to wield to show how intensely ensconced in the community they are. My own Lightning Bolts are beaten and bruised, white border for value, and stink of accumulated secondhand smoke. Not as a scratch and sniff effect as popular as that was when they were first printed, but as part of their journey through the world. And when I play with them, I feel like I'm channeling not just the history of Magic, but the forces of history and nature that art and games try to emulate. Whether you write, compose, paint, or design games, Lightning Bolt is the kind of creative gold you can only pray to happen upon once or twice in a lifetime. The idea that's at once elegant and nuanced, snatched from the sky and committed to paper before it drifts away. Lightning only strikes once.